Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing my spoiler-free review of What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. And this will be followed by a spoilery discussion. Alright guys, it has been quite a while since I filmed a singular book review, but I really love this book and I want to talk about it. So for the spoiler-free section, I'm just going to talk about the plot, the characters, the overall romance, and just my thoughts regarding the book as a whole. And then for the spoiler section, I'm going to talk about things I liked, things I didn't like, but it's going to contain a lot of spoilers. So with that being said, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about What Lies Beyond the Veil. Alright guys, so jumping into the plot of What Lies Beyond the Veil, this is a fantasy romance story, so know that going into it. So we are following Estrella, and Estrella is living in this very patriarchal community where women are not valued. And they don't have a lot of rights. So anyway, our main character, Estrella, is just dreading the day that a husband is going to be selected for her. She's a bit of a free spirit, and she just doesn't want to be tied down and have to be ruled over by a husband. Now, also in this community, there is a veil. So this magical veil separates the Fae from the humans. So in this community's history, the Fae were these horrible beings that are really feared, and they would mark humans. And when they marked them, that human became that Fae's property. So in order to keep this veil running, this community sacrifices people by, in front of the veil, and their blood makes the veil stronger. So Estrella is put in this horrible situation where she can either marry this deplorable person who has been grooming her since she was 6 years old, or she can be sacrificed to the veil. She picks sacrifice, so good for Estrella. So anyway, when she's about to be sacrificed, something happens, the veil ruptures, and all of the Fae come out, and then Estrella is marked. So she ends up fleeing for her life because she doesn't want to be the property of Fae, and also the community still wants to sacrifice her. So she is on the run, and that's pretty much all I can tell you about the plot without giving away any spoilers. I loved this story. It was so much fun. The way I've been pitching it is if FBAA and ACOTAR had a slightly gothic baby. It's darker than both of those books, but also a little bit spicier. And I don't mean the amount of spice, I mean that the spice scenes are just written, they're a little bit more crude. But still, I loved it. It was so much fun and definitely one of the best fantasy romances I've read this year. Alright, so moving into characters and romance, this is still completely spoiler-free. So in terms of our main character, I did like her as a character. However, I feel like in the very beginning of the book, she seemed very strong. She wanted her own autonomy. She wanted to take control of her life. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her what to do. And by the end, she was a little bit more submissive and was more okay with people taking the reins. And I didn't love that. I kind of wish she stayed consistently the way she was in the very beginning of the book, throughout the entire book. This is a very small critique. Also, I'm going to talk about this so much more in the spoiler section, but she is not the brightest. There were times where I was like, what are you doing, girl? But overall, I still liked her as a main character. I really liked the side characters. There were even some side characters that I feel like you're supposed to hate, but the author wrote them in a way where you can still see their motivations very clearly, and I like a good morally gray character. The love interest, I just thought he was fun. I thought he was funny. I didn't take him too seriously. I will say in terms of spice, I enjoyed the romance. The spicy scenes are not what I typically like in fantasy romance. If you've seen my reviews of A Rune of Roses, the spice kind of skirts the line or toes the line of being a little bit too blunt and crude for me. However, I was okay with it. I liked the story enough, and the story had enough plot that I was okay with the very intense spice scenes when they happen. They don't happen until towards the end of the book. I feel like TikTok is kind of making it sound like this book is really, really spicy from the get. That is not true. There's a lot of talk about spicy moments, but nothing really happens until 75% into the book. But still, definitely read it. I love this book so much. It was just so fun. Alright, so last section before we get into the spoilers. So writing style and pacing. I will say I was hooked from the very beginning of the story. I've been having a few issues with fantasy romance where it takes me a while to get invested, and I did not find that happening here. I just wanted to learn all about Estrella's community, where she was living, the history, everything going on with this veil, and it was good. I really felt invested right from the start. Pacing, also, I read this in 2 sittings. I could not put this book down. I will say parts of this are traveling. So if you're not a fan of traveling books, you might have a little bit of an issue. It doesn't last for the entire book, but a lot of this is like a traveling story. She's on the run, the Fae are chasing her. So that might be slightly problematic. One thing I did not love about this book. So this is very similar to something that happens in From Blood and Ash, where there is a character who just knows everything. And I just feel like it's kind of lazy writing. I don't love when there's a character that is just telling the history of everything instead of our main character finding things out for themselves. It's not done to the extent I feel like it's done in From Blood and Ash, but it's still done a little bit here, and that kind of grates on my nerves. But that, I feel like, is a personal critique of mine. That's something that just annoys me. You might not have any issues with it whatsoever. But overall, I thought the writing style, it was good. It was solid. I've been reading some very interesting fantasy romance recently, and I feel like this was actually more polished than a lot of other ones I've been reading. And pacing was great. I was invested the entire time, so definitely recommend. All right, guys, jumping into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, you've been warned. All right, so my biggest issue with this book, and I love this book. I thought it was so fun. How did Estrella not realize Callum was her mate? I knew from like the 3rd chapter, and I'm all about giving hints throughout a book so like something doesn't come out of nowhere. I feel like the author just did it a few too many times here. Like everyone besides Estrella knew that he was her mate, or they should have known. Matching tattoos, like legit just matching. And she mentions this multiple times. She's like, oh wow, there are all these people that are marked. None of them have a matching tattoo besides Callum. That's interesting. Like, how do you not put 2 and 2 together? Also, he's saying he's gonna kill for you the moment you guys kiss, and he's like, yeah, you're my star, like you're my life. I love you. And she's never putting 2 and 2 together. And then also, when he fights that beast in the cave, and she's like, I saw 2 giant shadows, and they're 2 monsters fighting each other, and then Callum walked out. How? How do you not realize? So that part kind of drove me insane, only because we're supposed to see this character as, like, intelligent and really just, I couldn't. I hated the fact that she never even considered that he could be her mate. One thing also I don't understand is the witch sees Callum, like they have this like stare off in the cave, and she's supposed to be able to see through Fae glamour, and is she just like, I'm gonna let it slide, like, or does he have some like special glamour that she couldn't see through? Because it seemed like she could tell that he was definitely a Fae, and then she just doesn't do anything about it. So I don't exactly understand what was going on there. Spicy scenes, like I said, a little bit crude, but I, for some reason, was like okay with it in this book, and I'm not in like other books. That bath scene in front of everyone, that was a time. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I've seen some reviews say this feels very much like a prequel book, and I can totally see that. I think the next book, which I am so excited for, is going to be more of Callum like wooing our main character Estrella and like bringing her back to the Fae world and finding out like what actually is going on with the history. I feel like I also have to do a reread on the history. Like, I feel like the first time I read a fantasy romance book, I'm like so engrossed in the story and I just want them to get together that I'm kind of ignoring all of like the little history information that they're giving us. So I'm gonna go back. If anyone wants to see a recap of this, I will be glad to do it prior to the next book being released. Just let me know. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below if you've read this. Even if you didn't like it, I just want to discuss this book with people because I feel like I don't know anyone else who's read it. And yeah, I said this already. I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.